Bloomberg News.
Spring in Nouriel Roubini, chairman of Roubini Global Economics and economics professor at New York University Stern School of Business. He joins us on the Bloomberg Business Hotline. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Well, we have the overnight dollar LIBOR up to 6.88% this morning from 2.57 yesterday. Biggest increase on record. Mr. Roubini, this is essentially banks saying we don't want to lend our money.
Absolutely. There is a complete breakdown now of credit markets, and there is no lack of trust in any counterparty, even the safest one. So this number, 6% plus, is not even meaningful because even at these interest rates, there is almost no interbank activity going on. No one is lending to anyone else. It's really a complete situation of a breakdown of the interbank system. It's really scary what's happening right now.
Now, Mr. Roubini is going to be with us for the entire hour, along with Bloomberg editor-at-large Tom Keene, with a break for a message from President Bush at the White House, which is coming up later this hour. Tom?
Even President Bush will get Nouriel Roubini to be quiet. Good morning, Nouriel. How are you doing?
Very well, Tom. How's everything with
Well,
you?
these are very, very exciting times. You and I, years ago, at a bar in Davos, framed this out, and it's remarkable how accurate you've been. We've come to a point where we have two different systems. We have a European system of cash injection by governments to nationalize, and then we've got a convoluted plan method here, nuances, debate, obviously a failed vote. Which system is a better system to get through this crisis?
Well, our system really doesn't work. This bailout plan of Treasury was completely flawed, was not going to even resolve this financial crisis. There were essentially two key elements of it that were missing. One is that you need to recapitalize the banking system, and that means that the government should inject directly money in the form of preferred shares, not just buying toxic assets. Buying toxic assets is really the exception. When you look at dozens of different banking crises, usually the government puts either preferred shares or common shares or sub-debt, and that's how you recapitalize the banks. And then when you do that, you force the current shareholders to match by suspending dividend payments, matching by pro rata increasing also their capital with a public injection of money, and you also try to convert some of the debt of the unsecured creditors into equity. So that's the first way in which this is not going to work. Secondly, if you're just going to buy the stuff and hold it, you're not going to resolve the debt problem of the household sector, millions of houses that are insolvent. So you need significant amount of outright debt reduction, not just debt modification, debt reduction. And that was totally missing from this plan. So you need something like what was done in the Great Depression, an HOLC that reduces the debt, and an RFC that injects public money into the banks. So it was a flawed plan.
Professor Roubini, when you look also at this idea of outside opinion, whether it's someone with your views or Charles Calamiris at Columbia University, if it's Jean-Charles Roche at Toulouse, why wasn't there an independent panel of bipartisan views, a mixed set of views, to advise these politicians?
Everything was rushed. The Treasury came with a plan that did not make sense. They scared the Democratic leadership, and everybody wanted just to vote something and go home and campaign for the election. So there was absolutely no hearing with independent academic or professional economists giving alternative ideas. This was just a lousy plan, and it's a good thing, in spite of the market collapsing yesterday, that this plan has been voted down. Maybe there is a hope right now they're going to do something different. I fear not. I fear they're going to eventually bribe about a dozen Congress people and going to switch their vote to a yes with minor changes in his plan. But this plan is flawed. It should not be passed.
Well, if it were up to you, what form would a new plan take?
It will take a form of, first of all, having some fraction, at least half of the public injection of money in the form of preferred shares, not all of it in the form of buying the toxic assets. So you recapitalize the banks that way, and for every dollar of public money, you suspend dividend payments and you force a matching dollar of Tier 1 capital from common shareholders. Then you take some of the unsecured creditors, you convert some of their credits and sub-debt into equity, and at the same time you have a plan that is consistent on how, once these assets are bought and taken off the balance sheet of the bank, they're going to be reduced the debt burden for the household sector. You do it in a coherent and systematic way, and you do it right. This was not a plan. This was really just not even something that's going to resolve anything.
Well, when you say reduce the debt burden for the household sector, which I assume means mortgage debt, how would you do that?
You have to use criteria. Criteria might be that you're going to only deal with those who are first home buyers. So if you were a condo flipper, second home, vacation home, you don't get that reduction. You can have a mean test so that people below a certain level of income get the relief and others don't. And then you try to find other criteria to figure out what is the amount of that reduction that is needed for people staying in their homes and avoiding means of foreclosure. It was done during the Great Depression. The Home Loan Owners Loan Corporation was created, and millions of households stayed in their homes, and that's how we resolved the Great Depression mortgage crisis. We need to do that. There is a massive debt overhang. That's why we're in a consumption recession right now. Consumption has been falling for 4 months in a row right now, and consumers are not going to consume until that debt burden of their mortgages is reduced to a level that is sustainable.
And Nouriel Roubini and Ken Pruitt, we see the Treasury bill, 3-month T-bill, 0.4974. Ken, that's come down a good 15 basis points or so in the last number of minutes. Nouriel, at RGE Monitor, you've got all sorts of different economists there, and you've got John Macon of the American Enterprise Institute writing. The title of his page is great, Panic. Just a single word, and he walks through this process, and he gets to opportunities lost. Professor Roubini, what was the greatest opportunity lost by these politicians?
Well, the opportunity, once you do something that is really massive, like $700 billion, to do it right and restore the confidence in the markets. The scary thing is happening right now is that yesterday the stock market in Europe, in Asia, and the U.S. was falling even before the House voted down this package because they realized that this is not going to resolve anything. You need, for example, to figure out which are the banks that are going to be surviving, that are distressed, that with liquidity and capital are going to survive. From those that are insolvent, you should close down. Right now, there is uncertainty. Anybody could be insolvent, and there is now a silent rank in the financial system. There are many people that have more than $100,000 in their bank accounts. They know they're not insured, and they're taking their money away from every bank. This is what's happening right now. There is a beginning of a silent run. And what you need to do, the first thing is a triage. Decide which banks are going to survive, and which one are insolvent, they're going to be closed down. That's the first step. Then you're going to buy some of the toxic assets. Then you're going to recapitalize the banks that didn't survive. Then you're going to do the debt reduction, and you do it in a coherent and consistent way. They missed the chance to do it right, and now there is panic, there is loss of confidence, no counterparty, even the safest one, they cannot be trusted at this point. There is no activity going on in the interbank market. This is a total freezing of the system, and if this system collapses, the effects are going to be disastrous for the payment system.
Nouriel Roubini, when you look at the rally here with S&P futures up 23 and NASDAQ futures up 15 after the big sell-off yesterday, is this a sucker rally, or is it the real thing?
It's a rally based on the expectation that probably they're going to try to rescue this plan. They're going to make the modifications that are necessary to get the extra votes to pass it. But it's really a minor rally. Even if they're going to eventually pass this plan, the effects are not going to be substantial. We're not going to fix this financial crisis. The recession train has already left the station. The banking and financial crisis train has left the station. What you do, if you do the right plan, you avoid ending up like Japan in the 1990s, when after the bursting of their real estate and equity bubble, they ended up in a 10-year-long, multi-year L-shaped recession. At this point, the recession is going to be severe. The financial crisis is going to be severe, regardless of whichever plan is passed. What we can do, if we do the right plan, is to avoid to have a 10-year depression.
Well, you mentioned, Professor Roubini, this idea